music lovers, rock fans, fans of all sorts of music, welcome to the Hollowed Halls of Musical People and Journeys. I am Nigel, we have Lauren, we have Paul, we have Trish, Chris, who will hopefully join us back in a second. We are talking everything new in the rock world, and we are reviewing the latest rock albums, and today's offering is Mono Inc. and their album Darkness. Is it dark? Will it shine some light into the rock world? We shall discover. Then we're going to rate it out of 5 and see if it gets into the Hall of Fame. And this is purely for our listening pleasure, of which is varied. Trish, we will start with you on this one. And hopefully Chris will be back by the time we've come all the way around.
Okay, so Mono Inc. When you said that you were thinking of put Mono Inc. for this month, but there were so many other bands to put in that you probably weren't going to add them, I asked you kindly if you would do so because I love Mono Inc., especially their album Book of Fire. They're a guilty pleasure of mine for sure, so I was eagerly anticipating this release. The opening track did not disappoint, bringing everything I expected from Mono Inc. with Pelting in My Darkness. Then in contrast, a beautiful Fly track with its slow melodic sound and lyrics. The album ebbs and flows with them not deviating from their gothic metal rock sound, which is their bread and butter and what fans know them for. My only downside of this album were the 3 songs in their native tongue of German, which I don't speak, so didn't have a Scoobies what the tracks are about, but I enjoyed them musically. Sorry. The last track, Ray of Light, I loved the intensity of it building up and then boom, cut short. It was the end of the album, which I really wanted to be left on a high musically for a final track. It's a great solid offering from Mono Inc. doing what they do best, but I feel I had my expectations set too high, which the album didn't reach for me, sadly, but I still enjoyed it and I will always love Mono Inc.
Now, when we go to Essen, I know when we go to Germany, Paul is, loves the dulcet tones of the rock and out there. He's always going to, he's not really. Paul, what about this? Did you enjoy Mono Inc. and did you enjoy the German singing?
Well, the German band Mono Inc. may be topping one of the German metal charts with their latest offering, Darkness, and so have the previous 2 albums. Looking at the album cover, I wasn't sure what to expect. Maybe a dark symphonic metal affair would have been my best bet. And their opening track alludes to that, but is quickly swept away with a mixture of goth metal, dark rock with a catchy upbeat pop element. After 25 years in the business, Mono Inc. know their audience and carefully cater for them. I have to admit, I enjoyed this album more than I should have, but not as much as I could have. It is difficult to remain upbeat about the dark of the moon or being lost in pain. So, yeah, it was a good listen to. Will I go back to it? I doubt it.
Lauren, do you love the dark of the moon, Lauren?
This is one of those where even from just looking at the album cover and stuff like that, I was like, oh, okay. I felt like I knew what I was getting into. And my predictions were correct. It was goth metal with a lovely dose of theatricality. But for me, it sort of stopped there. Like, I totally agree with what Trish said in that as well. There are some tracks on there where I'm like, okay. Like, you could have stripped them off and the album would have been stronger for it. Yeah, definitely. Like, one of my main notes is just, to be honest, you could have stripped off a lot of these songs and had a really cool EP that packs a hell of a punch. For me, it just ebbed and flowed too much in that sense, and it meant that overall it sort of lacked a little bit of energy and a little bit of risk taking, where they were then going, oh, this is what we know, this is what's safe, this is what works, this is what's good. And then as they went to go touch on other stuff, they're like, and then went back to it. Saying that, it's not a bad album. It's just not something that I am really versed in listening to. Like I'd be so fascinated to like go properly into their back catalogue and see what their other stuff is like. But overall, it didn't really leave a massive impression, and it was a case of, again, like Trish said, we sort of got to the end of the album, and then it just stopped, and I was like, oh, it's done. Whereas I sort of really like albums that sort of take you on a journey, has a bit of that ebb and flow, and then you end and you go, oh, I'm more than just a little bit tempted to loop it back round and put it on play again. And for me, it didn't really do that. Yeah, it was very much a case of it felt safe and secure within its genre of what it was of that goth metal. And it's not offensive. I'm not going to sit there and go, it's awful, I hate it. Blah. But at the same time, it didn't super excite me.
Okay. One thing, as a host, I tend not to disagree with everybody's comments, but lack of energy, I don't think you can say that this album lacked energy. If I'm honest, far from it. I think it was full of energy. It was full of rock. I think for me, I love this album, but I rate albums for the entire album and enjoying all of the songs. And unfortunately for me, I really don't particularly like the sound of the German language in a way that it's presented. I just don't. It doesn't resonate with me. Now, we just did Baby Metal and they were kind of singing in Japanese, and it didn't seem to matter. It really didn't seem, but that was a type of music. For me, with the kind of rock music, I like to know about the lyrics. I like to know about the Dark of the Moon and and those sort of lyrics. And I obviously couldn't pick up on the German language. I didn't really understand it, and therefore I would happily just skip those tracks. I'd just skip them. I wouldn't round down. So therefore, when I rate the whole album, I have to obviously take that into effect. But the rest of the album was fantastic, really good, lots of high energy, pounding rock tracks, good riffs. I loved, I think my standout track was In My Darkness. I thought that was absolutely terrific. It was kind of really good. And looking at our scores, I think that even if Chris had to dash off in a quick emergency there, would have agreed with me. So there we go. Maybe not in those words, but in terms of his enjoyment of the album, we will say. So, will it be enough? Will it get into our Hall of Fame? Let's find out then, shall we? Let's start with you then, Trish. What did you give this?
4.5.
Pretty high score, really.
I had to mark it down for the 3 that were in their native tongue.
Yes. And Paul?
I give it a 3.
Lauren?
I gave it a 2.
Boo!
There's room to grow. I'm prepared to go back and try and revisit that journey. Just for me, this missed the mark amongst everything else.
Don't worry, you've got enough to listen to. There's a lot. We got album of the year coming up. You've got enough love to do. Myself, Andy, and Cully all give this a solid 3.5. All three of us.
Ooh.
All three of us. So there we go. Which, to finish off the month, because this is episode 20, it was a solid 3.5. Gets in our top 300. So it's in the top half of albums reviewed. It gets into our top 300 albums of all time, which is like in the top half of albums that we reviewed. And gets into our top 100 albums of the year so far. So, pretty solid. Pretty solid. Well done to Mono Inc. Who knows? We might review you again and you might get better. In the meantime, do you agree? Do you disagree? Leave your comments below. Hit the like and subscribe button. And we will tune in. We have 2 more months before we hit the Album of the Year show. Thank you ever so much for joining us. And keep on rocking and keep safe. Goodbye.